What's going on, Dragons? Happy Wednesday. As always, I'm your co-host, Cory, and welcome to episode 49 of the Urcast, our weekly conversation about all things Magic the Gathering. Joining me, of course, this week is none other than the elusive Cole, who he made it back for last episode, so now we got two in a row. It was a hot streak brewing, Cole.
What's up, everybody? Nice to see you, Cory. We're here at the end of the year. Christmas and holidays around the corner, so a little jingle bell action for you.
This is a little weak jingle bell.
It's a meditation ball, but it accomplishes the same
Sure. But it's spherical in nature and it jingles upon...
It's spherical!
The spheres! But hey, this week, you guys, we figured we would harken back to a new tradition, which is us ranking the precons from the past year, telling us our hot takes, or telling you our hot takes, what you should pick up, what you should avoid, which were the decks that we both loved, both hated, or were polar magnetic opposites on.
So, just for the record, Cory has the cheat sheet already. He knows my rankings. I'm the only one in the dark about this. So he already knows which ones we agree and disagree on. I'm going in blind every single one of these.
Unfortunately, as a slave to the math, I had to unknowingly know everyone's stuff first. So to put this in perspective real quick. So we did this episode last year for 2024. It was 24 precons we ranked, and then there was one honorable mention, like Secret Lair precon. So a total of 25 precons last year, or 2024 rather. This past year, 2025, we're looking at 14 precons. So 13 and a Secret Lair precon yet again, which seems to be their own annual tradition at Wizards. So we're cutting back. So I guess first things first, how do you feel about the scaling down on the number of precons?
So yeah, I think having less product kind of gives them the chance to focus more on releasing quality product. I think last year there were a ton of precons that I didn't find crazy interesting. This year, I think there's a lot of hot contenders. Notably, obviously, they didn't release any commander decks for Avatar or for Spider-Man. So I think that's where we're kind of missing a large bulk of our numerical value of precons. But I think what they did release is notable, and this is a great year to be getting into Magic the Gathering, or if you're looking for a Christmas present for somebody who likes Magic the Gathering, this is a good year for it.
I definitely agree with you with the like quality over quantity thing, because for me, when I was doing my rankings, I found that in the 2024 edition of this, there was like this gray area, let's say from like 20 to top 10, like somewhere in there, the teens, that was just sort of like, I could take or leave this. Like, it had no impact on me. Like, you're looking back going, yes, that precon did exist. And shelf and next and shelf and
15
next.
Versus number 17 is like, what's the difference at that point? They're all kind of lumped in together as the deplorables.
Yeah, whereas like this year, there's still like a middle bracket for me, but that middle bracket, I could see more argument of like, okay, this was a good precon and I'm putting it at like 8 or something, but I could easily see this being like a top 5 precon to somebody else.
We talked about doing a tier list system, but Cory, you brought up a really good point that because the strength of this year's set of commander decks, it'd be kind of difficult or not as differentiated because so many of these commander decks would be in the top 3, an S, an A, or a B. It's hard to find too many out of this list that are bad or not.
Yeah, which is like the blessing of Magic in 2025, right? Because in years past, you'd always have like that clunker deck that you just knew was garbage. But as years have passed, those have gotten fewer and farther between. So you might look at a deck now and go, hey, that commander is not for me, or that theme is not for me. But usually the decks on whole are pretty solid, as opposed to being like 99 cards heaped together with some commander.
Some of them do feel like that. I will tell you. Looking through these deck lists, you get to the bottom of my list, and that's how I'm feeling. But
we clunking it out?
A couple. It's only a few.
Okay. So with that being said, we have one honorable mention precon that we'll get into. You'll understand why it's an honorable mention here in a second. And then we have 13 precons. We're going to rank them from number 13 all the way down to number 1. Our hot take, number 1. Honorable mention, Cole. So we set this one aside. We decided not to rank it in the main 13, and that is the Everyone's Invited Secret Lair deck. This is that Secret Lair like party theme deck run by Morophon the Boundless. So
Yeah.
we did this last year where we put the Secret Lair stuff kind of on its own separate island, just because it's not something that everybody kind of had access to. Secret Lair is, of course, very hit or miss on it, whether or not you can even purchase it in 2025.
Yeah, so it's a hot commodity. A lot of these products get sold out the same minute that they're released. It's we have a group chat that 8 to 12 people are battling to get something out of Secret Lair every time there's a drop. The Everyone's Invited Secret Lair is without a doubt not a great deck by itself, but the reprints are great. The new art, they made a lot of new art for really powerful cards, commander staples, that have more than recouped the value. If you paid whatever the market price was, it's only gone up with a lot of these very desirable reprints. It has strong cards. I just think it's really more cute than anything. I love the art of Morophon, the commander, and there's a ton. I've purchased a couple of individual cards out of here before the art, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Cory?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is probably the closest to the 99 cards in a heap with a commander in front of it, and I kind of think that's the way a lot of the Secret Lair decks have gotten. Like if you look at the earlier ones, like the angel themed one that had Giada and whatnot in it,
it's really strong.
Yeah, the Raining Cats and Dogs one was a solid deck back in the day. This one is 5 color kind of creature type matters jumble.
They seem to do that a lot. They did the 20 Ways to Win is 5 color, super huge jumbled themes, and then there's obviously the Transform Secret Lair deck that came out. A lot of double-sided cards that just a pretty pile to show you that they can do it, and people would buy it.
I ended up getting the 20 Ways to Win deck last year, and it's playable in the sense that like the mana base works well enough that you're never unable to play cards, but you're definitely not going to a table and like racing anybody. It's more about I've got this deck and look at the goofy thing I can do, and maybe I'll win with 20-toed Toad, or maybe I'll win with Gates. So like there's a win con in theory, or 20 win cons in theory.
Yeah, you're never entirely out of the game, but you're usually out of the game.
Yeah. So that's kind of where this one is. So we did not rank it in the 13. I think if we did, I would probably have put it as 14th because it's a very shiny, very pretty box to have, and I would put the pieces in other decks.
I think it would be terrible for a new player. If this was your intro to Magic the Gathering, you would not really understand how to play the game.
This is not a intro deck. This is like a when you have that friend that's like, well, I'm gonna make this weird sub theme work. Like I've always wanted to do Thopter Recursion or something, and you're like, I guess, man, you do you.
Seems strong. Seems
cool. Anyways, so with that being said, and that one out of the way, let's hop into the 13 precons that did come out this year. Now, the one takeaway I will say is, we talked about 2 sets not having precons.
Yeah.
Well, 9 of the 13 came from 2 sets, because we had 5 in Tarkir and 4 in Final Fantasy. So like a huge, almost 2/3 of it came out in 2 sets.
And then obviously a 2 and 2 in Aether Drift and Edge of Eternities, respectively.
So when you hear Tarkir, I'm just going to pre-warn the audience. When you hear Tarkir and you hear Final Fantasy a lot, it's because there's a lot of decks.
Tarkir is dominating this list. It's almost half the...
They must really love it. yes, we do, but also they just made a lot of product. But we are not going to be starting off with either of those, Cole, and that is because our number 13 choice, Living Energy. This is the finger is raised.
I raised a finger. I was curious. I didn't know how we were going to list these. I think we should specify for the audience. Are we going in chronological order or like average of our combined rank?
So what we have done is Cole has ranked these from 13 all the way down to 1. I have done the same thing, and then we're doing composite rankings. So the lower the score, let's just say if your top ranked deck is number 1, my top ranked deck is number 1. It's a composite score of 2, so it aggregates out to 1, essentially.
Sure. That makes sense.
So the kind of golf rules, the lower the score, the higher up it's ranked. Was not an issue.
So that's good to point out too, that 13 is our lowest, not our best.
Yeah, it did not gain 13 victory points, no. That being said, this one was not near the top on any ranking. So this was your last ranked deck. This was my second to the last. This is Living Energy, the Aether Drift Temur Energy deck.
Yeah.
So here's kind of my takeaway from it. I got this deck. I actually ended up getting it not during Aether Drift season, but probably closer to Tarkir season. I found a copy of it on clearance at Target.
Okay.
Which I think should also tell you about how popular this deck is.
They were having to convince people to get rid of it, sure.
Yeah. They were remodeling their entire TCG area. They had cleaned off all the shelves except for about 20 copies of Living Energy. So there it is. I think this is one of those things where it kind of suffers from the fact that it's the third energy deck we've had in 2 years, which
you would think gives it a lot of support, a lot of energy support. Increased the pool by 30 cards.
10, you would think cards. You would think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about it, Madison Lee, which is the Fallout one, was what? Mardu, I think. And
man, I could not even tell you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Mardu. And then I know the Satya Modern Horizons 3-1 was Jeskai.
So you get a little bit of overlap here and there, but not much from this one.
Yeah, you get a little bit of overlap. I would argue that the Satya Modern Horizons deck is stronger just from face commander value.
It's actually really strong. Not to harp on commander decks from previous years, but I thought it was a powerful deck. I've played against it, and it's got infinite combos straight out the box.
Yeah, and this one here it's interesting, but with that being said, I think the other ones got a little more traction in previous years because we hadn't seen energy in so long that now it's like, kind of the gimmick of energy has been played out a little bit more. It's almost like if you saw 3 infect decks in a 12-month span.
Yeah, I think this deck, like you said, the word interesting encapsulates it. It's interesting. It cares about artifact synergy, energy counter synergy. That's it. And that's kind of a split theme. Saheeli, the main commander, wants you to be casting artifacts, and then you're making copies of permanents, which is cool. I like that you can make copies of anything. It doesn't have to be an artifact or a creature, except that then it is a 5/5 artifact creature. And then you sack it at the end step. To me, this just kind of felt like a worse version of the Mishra from Brothers War, that on the beginning of combat makes a copy of an artifact that it has a different name, Mishra's War Form, and gets sacked. And that deck had so many cool things you could do with making different named legendary copies. It did it for free. You didn't have to pay energy, so you could dedicate a larger portion of your deck to non-energy support. And this deck here, Living Energy, I think just kind of suffers from having no clear win condition other than I'm going to make a copy of a big creature and hope that Elder Gargaroth, great card. What are you winning the game by making a second Elder Gargaroth?
No, I completely agree with that. And then the way it kind of gets you the energy, which is playing artifacts or artificers.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, you would think that would lend itself to being like an artificer typal kind of deck, but it doesn't really, because a lot of the artificers that are out there don't synergize with other artificers.
Yeah, they do a lot of cost reduction, but you look at this deck and it does have several artificers and a couple artificers that give you energy as well. But then the bulk of the deck is this package of big boss monster type creatures where a lot of them, the boss monster element is that they make energy counters. Like Aethertide Whales, 6 mana, 6
Yeah.
energy.
Just so you can make another copy of an Aethertide Whale to make energy to make another copy. You know what I mean?
To
Like,
make another copy on the next turn, you know?
Yeah, so where's the payoff?
Yeah.
Where's the, like, game-ending payoff? Now, I will say not Saheeli and not the backup commander, but there is kind of like an interesting deck that I've seen come out of Nissa, which is in here. So there's a Nissa World Soul Speaker,
Yeah,
which is a
mono
mono
green.
green that has landfall. So on landfall, you get 2 energy, and then you can pay 8 energy to basically cheat a creature into play.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, mono green big creatures is a thing, and kind of doing it with a landfall energy sub package is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's like Omniscience because it's permanent spells. So you can do artifacts or big enchantments.
Yeah. So there's some interesting like sub decks you can build around there, but then you're trading off of like the blue and red kind of energy support, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of mono green energy support.
Well, that's the thing though, is you actually just forget about energy entirely because landfall is strong enough by itself to more than make up for that. You have every
Yeah.
fetch land in here. You have all the cards that allow you to play multiple lands. You play lands from your graveyard. I've played a couple games against Nissa World Soul, and it's much stronger than Saheeli at the cost of if we're raiding a precon, you pretty much have to rip out 85% of the deck to pivot it for Nissa World Soul Speaker.
Yeah, I mean, when
even then
you're
a lot
about
of the cards that remain
you're
don't
about
do much for
85% of the
control.
deck and 2 colors and most of your
Yeah,
land
yeah.
base.
Well, and that's what I meant by the colors.
Yeah.
But then not on top of that, it's like what's left isn't really supporting her, which
Well,
is more landfall than it.
And I think that encapsulates 100% why this is our number 13th ranked deck is just when you're like, hey, I'm not the best card in here is not the commander, not the backup commander, just some other legendary down the deck list.
That admittedly is 25 cents.
Yeah, pretty much.
All
Moving
right,
on.
so starting off the bottom of the barrel pretty nicely. I'm excited to see number 12.
Yeah, number 12 from Final Fantasy, we have Revival Trance. So this one you had number 10. I had this as my dead last.
Wow.
Precon. So this is the Mardu kind of like self-mill recursion precon.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what this is for me. This is a flavor thing for me, not necessarily on the character Terra, but on the fact that I'm not a huge like self-mill kind of fan. Like it's just not a playstyle for me. This deck here, it kind of forces you to the self-mill. So when we look at some other decks, and I think you'll know which one, when we look at some other decks kind of further on down this list, they'll have self-mill built in, but they'll have self-mill that's more optional. Whereas this one's just like, it's kind of a forced self-mill. And then on the recursion front, where you can kind of like pay 2 to get back a creature that's power 3 or less from your graveyard, I just feel like there's other options out there that I would prefer to build a deck around, like the Aleshas of the world.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's my kind of hot take on it.
I would say it's a pretty lukewarm take. I think it's pretty agreeable, as mine was low on the list too. I on the other hand really like Terra. I think she kind of does everything that you need a reanimator commander to do. She mills, she puts stuff into your graveyard. You have to pay 2 after dealing combat damage, which it does give her flying, so she has built-in evasion. But you're doing a lot of juicing. You're not getting a lot, or you're doing a lot of squeezing. You're not getting very much juice. I agree with you that there's better reanimator commanders that kind of do the whole package. I do think that this deck in particular has a really hard time closing out games because although certainly your flying commander can knock somebody out with commander damage, it's just that it's restricting you to reanimating creatures that are power 3 or less, and there's not a lot of blowout ways to win in this particular precon build. I'm sure with a lot of upgrades it's strong, and I know Celeste, the Rune Knight, the alternate commander here,
Sure,
actually she's really strong. But yeah, this deck, I think, notably, it does have a reanimate in it, which I think is pretty good for a reanimator.
fair.
But and sorry, one last point about Terra. Another weakness is that it returns the creature to the battlefield tapped. I feel like you're jumping through some hoops, you're paying mana, and then you get a tapped creature
Yeah,
on
so you don't even
once
get the
per
blocker.
combat.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know. Not super
Yeah,
excited about this
and
one.
then I think my other issue with this is, like, there's good pieces in this deck. This is why I think this deck, if I were to recommend picking up, this would be the deck I kinda strip out parts from, because I do think there's, like, some really interesting commanders for other decks in here. I just don't see how they all really work with Terra. Like, Kefka, I think, is very interesting. The one that, like, exiles off the top of everyone else's library and lets you cast stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Does not synergize with Terra whatsoever.
You're not reanimating it unless you cast
Yeah, it's
reanimate
like a
or
7/6 or something like that, or 5 something. So you're not reanimating it. Go-Go,
yeah.
the mime is interesting.
I love
Again,
Go-Go, Mysterious Mime.
yeah,
There are some cool reprint or some cool new cards, but together they don't really assemble a functional deck.
yeah, and I kinda agree with you, which is like, you could make a cool deck out of this, but you would have to strip out a ton of those creatures for better pieces elsewhere.
You probably want to go combo or something that's going to allow you to basically I think you just use Terra as a utility piece to return your combo creatures back from the battlefield if they get removed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not really taking wins with this.
Yeah, but that being said, last place for me, 10th place for you, 12th place altogether, and moving right along.
Cool.
Number 11, we're going to venture into Tarkir here for a second. So
Yeah,
number 12 for you, number 9 for me. Number 11, we have Abzan Armor. So this is
sure.
the Abzan Toughness Matters, headed up by Felithar the Steadfast. That has to do with, like, being able to deal or assign damage equal to its toughness.
Yeah. So this is a design space that we've seen in old school Doran and newer school Arcades. I
Mhm.
mean, they have that crocodile, hippo, turtle thing from murders at
Sure.
Carlog Manor. I love it's a unique type of deck. It's certainly, it's interesting. It's cool to play with. It has buffs compared to those creatures in that it only allows your creatures to deal damage equal to their toughness. And then it also can draw you a ton of cards off of its second ability. But at its core, it's a deck that entirely relies on its commander. And if it gets removed a couple of times, it's already such a slow deck because you're relying on
Sure.
bringing out big creatures that pretty much are all, none of them have any sort of evasion other than defender and a couple of flying. But you're slow and you're super reliant on your commander. Bonus points for Zatalpa, the joke reprint of every white deck.
The king of every white deck. No, I completely agree with you. I think this is one of those decks where if you want to lower the mana curve on it, you have to put in walls basically, because that's the only thing you're gonna find that's like 1, 2 mana with a big toughness, slow power kind of thing.
Right.
But then you have to get around defender. So if you lose your commander here, you're SOL,
Yeah.
or you're playing big creatures that, hey, yeah, they've got, whatever, 8 toughness, but that's because they're like an 8/8 or something like that already.
Yeah, it's a combat damage win con if you're using Felithar. That falls as soon as Felithar is gone because none of your creatures can do combat without.
So, yeah, for me, this is like, I've always wanted to build this deck, not necessarily Felithar, but I've always wanted to build like the Kulfanor kind of last U deck where it's toughness matters. And there's like a couple different takes of this. Like you said, there's Arcades is kind of the famous one with defenders and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I think one of the biggest drawbacks for me on this deck is like, one, yes, if you lose Felithar, you're basically ruined back into the Stone Age without it. And then two, it's hard to really upgrade this deck because there's like very key upgrades you can put in all of these
sure.
type of decks, but it's not such a broad strategy that you have like, oh, I'm building a control deck, so I've got access to basically every blue counter spell that ever existed. This is like how many useful things with a big butt are out there that you'd want to include?
There are a handful of interesting cards that you can like. I'm looking at these board wipes that care about choose creatures total power 4, destroy everything else, or return any number of target creature cards with power 10, a total power 10 from your graveyard to the battlefield. And sure, that's cool, but it's not by itself really winning you the game. It's surviving a board wipe,
Yeah.
sure, or you're doing a board wipe. But again, you're really just reliant on Felithar to get everything going. Beater, whatever you want to call him. Beater.
Beater.
He's kind of fun. He's kind of interesting, but
But even that one, I'm like, I would rather have the other one, the one that's not in the deck.
yeah.
You know, like, that's interesting, but I'd rather have the one that's like, if you've got 40 toughness, get blah, blah, blah. If you got 20
Yeah.
toughness, get blah, blah, blah. I will say,
Well,
though, there is, you know, we talked about this with the living energy thing where it was like the best card on the deck is like 30 cents or whatever.
yeah.
I think Jaws of Defeat is a pretty solid card in here. This is the one that, like, when a creature enters, you deal damage equal to the difference between toughness and power. So it's just like
Yeah.
an enchantment that hits stuff. Like, I've seen some interesting combos that people have been able to pull off with that. But again, it's like, wow, exciting. A sub-dollar card that might have some niche utility.
4 mana enchantment that by itself does nothing. And at its best, you are basically giving one of your creatures haste, or you're just dealing what
Yeah,
it
you're
what ends up
pinging.
being. Well, sure, it's a little pingy. And I think it's I don't know. The whole deck also everything costs 4 or 5 or 6, 7 mana. So I think you're dedicating your whole turn to playing these
Yeah.
big drops that are cool and interesting, but they're just not that. They don't do it for me.
Yeah, and you're right. Once you remove Felithar a couple times, are you really rushing to play a, 7, 8 mana, like 0/5? Nah, I'm
Well,
good.
all right. Let's
All right.
what's next? What do we got
All
on
right,
number
number
11?
10. Number 10,
10.
Cole, we have Jeskai Striker. So we are
Cool.
still delving into the Tarkir lands. So you had this at number 11. I had it at number 8. This is the, like, Shuko, Narset Unified kind of
Chico.
Shiko. I'm sorry. Shuko, which is a very useful equipment that has seen play in the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Post
Shiko and
Nadu.
Narset.
Yeah. So it's Jeskai, it's prowess, it's spell. I'm air quoting spell slinger here. This was a hard 11 for me. It could have been 12 or 13.
Wow.
I have a very similar feeling to the Abzan Armor, that this is a deck that costs a lot of mana to get things going. And while it does have strengths as, targeted removal, you get to copy it, or your big X damage spell so that targets one player, you get to copy it, or occasionally you might draw a card. But the deck itself, like the precon out of the box,
Mhm.
very difficult to win with. Unless you're
Now,
getting a big X splash damage, you're sliding under the radar, but
sure.
at what cost?
Now I want to make it a little spicy for you. So, we surveyed some friends here to see what they were interested in for this
Huh?
episode as well. And I want you to know that our friend Cody over at the Brew Review, he actually had this as his third best precon of the year.
Wow.
So obviously there's something you and I just are not taking away from this.
I think it's personal preference. Maybe he built this deck and made some heavy changes to it, and
He's
maybe it
like,
upgraded. It's better, but
maybe we're gonna find out that he's like a huge Narset fan, and he has one of every Narset that's ever existed. He's built that deck.
yeah, I just don't see how you're winning with this precon out the box. Maybe again you make some crazy changes to it, but this is it's a slow deck that is kind of controlling until it has a big blowout with like an expansion or an explosion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like, I can see where it wants to go, right? And I think this is just like the energy thing. This is kind of one of those themes that we've seen a couple times in the last year or so with the, like, the second spell matters kind of
Yeah.
deal. We saw the Stella Lee precon out of Thunder Junction that I think did this a lot better. That where it did sort of the copy the second spell shtick.
Yeah.
And that one is a lot more combo-y. One, because it's just easier to get out. Two, it's in is it colors, so you don't even have to worry about the white kind of the white path of distraction over here.
Yeah. It also had Eris, the Storm Thunder,
Yeah, the like 8
which was a
8
really cool
thingy. Yeah.
commander I've since forgotten about. But there's a lot of overlap. I mean, that's actually a solid point, that in the last couple years we've seen a ton of support for casting your second spell, min the wild, or actually I'm thinking of drawing your second card each turn.
There's a lot of draw your second card ones too.
Yeah. So there's something there, but This really requires you. I mean, it's your second spell, and then it has to be a targeted spell that if you want to copy it. Otherwise, you draw a card. At least it loots you, or refills your hand after the second spell. Man, I just fear that you run out of cards quick, and what value are you getting out of it early? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the problem is the way this reads is a lot of newer players are going to read this deck, see it as a value engine because it was like, oh, it's copying a spell. And especially if you're a newer player, I think your brain goes instantly to like doubling removal. You're like, oh, I'm going to cast a Path to Exile, and then it's going to copy and make another Path to Exile, which is like, it's cool, but does that actually win you the game, or does that just stall out the game, so that you've got longer turns to figure out what you're going to do with your 4/4 flyer?
Well, and there's some cool stuff. I'm not saying there's nothing cool you can't do with this.
Sure.
Even with just the precon, like Baral's Expertise, which returns 3 target artifacts or creatures to their owner's hands, and then lets you cast something 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. That'd be fun to copy. Or a couple of these, like a Prismari command, where you get to choose 2 and do a ton of strong effects twice. Cool stuff you can do, but like you said, I mean, a new player would have no choice but to think that it's pretty much removal city, because that's, I think, in the precon, that is a large portion of the dedicated space for targets. It's all the big spells.
Yeah, in which case, if I was going to just build this deck, like if I was going to build a deck around that similar theme, I would just sooner build like a Magda, or I'm sorry, not Magda. Who am I thinking of? A Zada, where it's just going to copy it across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Zada will probably be good in this, but yeah,
but alas, Jeskai Striker. Cody, if you listen to this episode, I would like you to leave in the comments why you had it so strongly at number 3. I expect it to be no less than 500 words, which I believe might be the limit on comments on YouTube, but you'll figure it out. 500 words, cite your sources. And as we move on to number 9, we have Limit Break out of Final Fantasy. So I'm going to say this is maybe the last of what I'll call the mid-tier decks that you and I are kind of like in lockstep on. So the way I was kind of breaking it down is there's like 4 chunks of decks as I was kind of analyzing the numbers here. Okay. So the first chunk is sort of we both agree they suck, like the Living Energies, where we're both like, there's a lot better, right? Then there's the group that we both consider are great, which we'll see later on. Then you get to this middle tier that's either like we both agree they're mid, or you're really high on and I'm really low on, or vice versa. So this is like the last of we both agree they're mid tier, and then we kind of hit into the like, I think it blows, you think it's great, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So this one, Limit Break, number 9, splits our rankings right down the middle, because you had it at 8, I had it at 10. This is the red, green, white, cloud-facing equipment deck. So Cloud enters, he can attach equipment onto himself, and then when he attacks, he draws cards, and if his power is greater than 7, you make treasure tokens. So it's like an equipment deck with some gimmicks once you get to certain power thresholds.
Yeah. So I consider myself a pretty great Voltron / equipment player. Obviously, this isn't a Voltron deck as much as it's kind of like a go wide equipment, which I've done. I have a Jin Sakai deck that does it to pretty great success. I automatically, Naya, I think you have great colors for this theme.
No, hold up. Do you have a really great Jin Sakai deck? Because if I recall, your Jin Sakai is still sitting in the secret lair envelope on my kitchen table.
Well, that's fair. I have a really nice hand-drawn proxy that
You've got a great 99 of a deck just waiting for the head to be assembled.
Yeah, yeah. What's up with that, Cory? I need to give you some money for that, I guess.
Let me put my bank account information out here on the podcast. So you're going to go ahead and Venmo it too.
So, okay, it's Naya. He's hasted. He costs 5 mana. He's coming out late, but it's giving you time to play a couple equipment. Auto attaches an equipment. There's a ton of cheeky maneuvers you can do with really strong equipment that have low CMC but high equip costs. So that kind of
Colossus
mitigates it. Yeah, Colossus Hammer being a great example. Draws cards or refills your hands, which is always good on a commander, a little bit of card advantage. But I think kind of the biggest strength of this Precon is that it has a lot of really interesting new cool cards that are strong in an equipment deck. Red 13, the Proud Warrior, one red and a green, and it gives your modified creatures vigilance and trample, which is awesome for a Voltron-y or equipment-y deck. Allows you to smack out without having to worry about being smacked back. Obviously, there is the Tifa, martial artist, the alternate commander for this deck that gives you an additional combat for only 4 mana and is of itself a pretty strong card. There's some good reprints in here. Some of these equipment are pretty goated with the sauce. A Sword of the Animus. I'm a personal huge lover of Conqueror's Flail. It has Colossus Hammer, so it lets you do the funny thing, once every 13 games or so. Skull Clamp, $5 card right now. So they put that in there. It's not bad. It's not great for this deck, but it's Skull Clamp. So take it out and put it in something else.
Yeah, I don't mind this precon. Now, I put it at 10 with kind of like the asterisk that I personally haven't played it yet, but I've seen other people play it. And I think I'm more of a fan of the backup commander. Get the melee kind of action going on, get the bonus combats. Like, I'm a little more of a fan of that, but I can see Cloud being a nice beginner style commander too. If you want to have that Voltron, you want to have that equipment centric build, that him being able to like auto attach, he comes in with haste, so you're able to just turn sideways right away. He gets to draw you cards, makes treasure, so it kind of hits a lot of issues that a new player might have. Like, you don't got to worry about card draw, you don't have to worry about ramp so much. You
He's a
don't
great
have to worry about
utility
creatures.
piece.
Yeah,
He's not, it's maybe a small chance that he's going to end up killing someone. You get some commander damage in there, definitely, with Colossus Hammer.
and like you said, I'm a proponent of anytime they want to reprint Sword of the Animist. Like, it's a great card just to have, and it always creeps up in price.
Yeah. So nothing too standout about this deck. I think it had middling ratings for the two of us, and that doesn't speak necessarily to its weakness, but more so to the strength of the next 9 decks or so. I think there's a lot of contenders, and some stuff just has to follow the bottom area. So
Well, and I
sorry
think
about that,
this
Cloud.
Well, and I think this is one of those things that's like an example of how many decks came out this year, because we're talking this is 9 out of 13 this year. I think if we looked at it in 2024 standard where there was 24 decks, I
Yeah,
could still see this being like top half, like 12 plus range.
that's saying a lot. Very high. I thought of if it's
Without,
in the
I'm saying, without like doing a hard reference of last year's list, I could see it being in the upper echelon of those decks. Like, it's definitely
yeah.
better than Madison Lee. It's definitely better than, a handful of those.
Uh-huh.
Moving on, we're back in Final Fantasy. So at this point,
We never
we
left.
have now seen 3 of the 4 Final Fantasy decks.
Huh?
Oh, you were really high on this. This was your number 4 overall deck. Coming in at number 8, we have the Counter Blitz deck. So you had
Wow.
this at 4. I had this down at 11. So this is your Bant deck headed up by Titus.
Yeah, this is it's count. The clues in the name. It's counter blitz. It wants you to put counters on stuff.
Has the
I
Blitz
think
ball in it.
any deck that is built around a proliferate commander has a lot of secret strength that, although it may not look super strong, casting it on turn 3, this is an inevitability commander for me. I've played against it a couple times, and it just seems to always be doing something. It's playing like small creatures that have a good amount of value, evolve creatures that are generating you green mana for each 1/1 counter on it, and that's increasing every time. It moves counters around, which is a very strong proliferate mechanic that allows you to strengthen your other creatures. My first ever precon was Atraxa of proliferate, and I never got to cast or she'd always get removed before I could do anything cool with her. But it's because it's a powerful mechanic. I think there's some real potential to upgrade this deck with the counter support cards that are often a little bit more expensive. Your doubling seasons, of the world, your Ozolith or whatever. Like, I mean, there's so much easy upgrades if you proxy or you want to spend the money on it. And the deck by itself is just inevitability because you're playing these creatures. They're all pretty cheap, and then they just keep getting stronger and stronger, and they give you more resources. I mean, it flops to a board wipe, but so
What
so do
doesn't,
all these precons. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason why I put it so low is not necessarily because I don't think it's strong. Like, I definitely think Titus is, like could head up, like, extremely strong Bant deck, like, with any kind of counters, really. The reason I put it so low is it felt to me to be like you always hear about, like, Simic good stuff. This felt like they made a commander that just did everything Bant wants to do without necessarily getting too creative to me.
Uh-huh.
Like, it was just like, well, they would really love to draw a card. Well, guess what? You can draw 3 cards per turn with this on your turn. You know, you could proliferate 3 times. You could move counters around. So it's sort of like counters, draw cards, proliferate. Just felt like it was like the bantiest of Bant to me.
Yeah, and I have that as a high point of it does a lot for 3 mana. For
Mhm,
3 mana, you're moving counters, which having played I've Traxxas for such a long time, and now I've swapped it over to like a Falco Spera deck, which is also Bant counter focused. You know, moving counters so strong, drawing cards whenever a creature deals combat damage, he himself doesn't have to attack is strong. Proliferating is strong. Obviously, you can only do it once per turn. You could put some planeswalkers in here and get some surprising action, especially considering that you're so inundated with strong creatures that your planeswalkers will survive a turn.
mhm.
There's alternate like win cons that care about counters. So I think as far as a precon goes, this is a pretty solid, sturdy deck that it looks super innocuous until it starts hitting like a ton of bricks.
So the one thing I will say that I enjoyed, and I do want to circle back on this deck at some point, is with Yuna, the kind of the backup commander, the Grand
Mm,
Summoner, because she has some interesting play, I think, with like those summon sagas that came out in Final
sure.
Fantasy, where she puts on like 1/1 counters, and then when they were to pass away, because she counts their lore counters, that she can take those counters and apply them to like a future creature and stuff like that. So I think there's, like, some interesting play there,
Sure.
and I don't discount that Titus is, like, super strong. It's just I think I'm turned off by how strong it is because it's like, it's just so bad.
Well, then that speaks only to the highness of the deck that it's so strong that it
This
it
just rubs
made
me as, like,
bottom 9 of
if
your
in 2026 they were like, "Hey, guess what? We made new lane, True Lane 2.0."
well, this is nowhere near Tulane as far as like band's value goes. So I think if nobody can complain about you doing well with Titus. The card, it tells you what it's gonna do. You don't it's not strong or it's not doing anything right now. Boom, one synergy piece and the thing starts popping.
Now, you know what's ironic to this deck too is like you talked about board wipes, but when I was looking through the deck, I think it's funny is the other thing that like if there was a silver bullet to this deck, it is also in this deck, which is Sin, the big Leviathan thing.
Yeah.
Because if somebody were to play that against you, it soaks all your counters.
Yeah, yeah, and like solemnity or something that stops counters being
Sure.
placed. I mean, counters aren't invincible, but
You know, I don't know. I also saw that when I went to MagicCon, I saw somebody that kept blinking Sin over and over again, and they were using it to take all the counters off of their sagas to reset them all.
that's a very interesting maneuver.
Yeah, it was unique for sure.
Yeah, and otherwise, if you're having to play Sin Unending Cataclysm to counter your buddy's Titus deck, then you have a 7 mana,
That's
very
meta.
niche
That's meta
silver
playing right
bullet
there.
that is, I don't know.
They're like, Solemnity, he'll see it coming. He won't see 5 green blue flying trample Sin coming from nowhere. So that's our number 8 pick. I do think that this is where we're kind of getting into that territory of if you see it on a shelf and you have not picked it up, these are definitely worthy pickups.
Sure.
Though even though I say it's number 11 for me, I actually do have 2 copies of this deck of Counter Blitz.
Wow.
Yeah, so Sharon actually has 2 copies, I should say. We got her a copy when Final Fantasy first came out because this was like her Final Fantasy that they based it off of. And then for her birthday, one of our friends actually got her the foil version.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
we're
that's a
planning on
beautiful deck.
taking the foil version and leaving it intact, and then the other regular version and turning it into like a Una deck. Kind of seeing how it goes.
Yeah, I like Yuna. I think she's really strong, and that alternate art version that costs like whatever, probably $1,000.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so beautiful that I will never own one, I'm sure.
Hey,
Coming up next, at our number 7 slot, we have Mardu Surge. So this is gonna wrap up our bottom half, and then after this, we're in the top half of the rankings. Number 7, Cole, because it's number 7 for you and number 7 for me.
wow, that's high five on that one. That's a
So
first.
we synced up on this one. This one here, I kinda put it middle of the pack. I think it's an interesting kind of deck build. I will say that I do like the other Zergo is in the set a little more. So this
Uh-huh.
Zergo here, he mobilizes, and then when creatures you control like they die, you either draw cards or you get a drain effect depending on if they die in combat or not. If they die while attacking. I will say I like the other one more that prevents sacrifice, so you get to keep your tokens around. But this
Yeah.
deck here does have some interesting kind of play around. So there's a lot of cards in here that let you get out a handful of tokens for the turn. And really, the whole goal is get a bunch of tokens out, turn them sideways, let your opponent decide if they want to take damage or if they want to let you draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah. So, okay, got to start it off by saying I'm a Zergo fanboy. I had a Zergo Helm Smasher deck for a long time. Love all the Zergo love that came out in the
Zergo
chart here.
gang.
Zergo's cool. He smashes helms. I have another name for my deck, but it's not safe for podcasting. So I will refrain. You'll have to reach out to me on any social media.
He
I'll let
smashes
you
what
know.
else on
That's exactly right.
yeah.
Now, so I put it where I did in 7, which again, I don't think is a bad spot. It's just everything else is pretty good. This is a pretty strong aristocrats deck directly out of the box. It's got a lot of the pieces you need. It has sack outlets, so you can control how your tokens die or when your creature tokens die to Zergo's ability if you want to draw cards or if you want to deal each opponent loses 1 life. He's super strong for being 3 mana, making you the creatures, and then you kind of giving you the payoff. He's a win con in the command zone. If you have
Mm,
I think of one of the most iconic legendary red creatures, Perforos, where yes, you're playing a game of Magic, but you also have this kind of sub game where I just need to play 20 creatures or create 20 tokens, and
yeah,
everyone will
you're
take 2
creating
damage.
a
Yeah.
timer.
So with Zergo, because it deals the damage to each opponent, if you're able to make enough tokens, you can kill everyone at instant speed without even moving to combat.
Yeah, this is like if you had to me, anyways, this is
Yeah.
like if you had like a Perforos and a Blood Artist like sitting around in your command zone,
Well,
but it
both of
just
which would be
popped out.
good includes in this deck
Yeah.
too. It's worth stating. You can sit on a sack outlet and a small pile of tokens, and you say, "Hey, man, if you swing at me, I will sack all my tokens, and Zergo will see them, and everyone will take 13 damage." Which maybe puts a target on your head. It's similarly to Perforos, your splash damage. So everyone's got to get a piece of that pie. I like it. Mardu, it's really low to the ground. A large portion of this deck is 3 mana or less. You're drawing cards, and the cards that you're drawing are just small ramping artifacts or like kind of aristocrat supports. It's solid. Yeah, blowout turns.
Yeah, I think this is one of those decks that like can sneak past a lot of people because
Sure.
you can play a lot of the game and it looks like, oh, you're just making one little creature and oh, I've just got like a little 1/1 here. I've got a 2/2 there, and you might be doing just little chip damage while everybody else is making more haymaker style turns. But
Uh-huh.
once the table gets low enough, like once the table gets sub 20 life, you become that real threat where you could easily go, okay, I've got 5 tokens out. I've got 10 tokens out because it's super easy to make a ton of tokens and then just turn them sideways and go, okay, if you don't block them, I'm gonna drop them all into my sack engine and sack outlive them away.
You
Or
know,
you take a bunch of combat damage and then I'm gonna sack them away anyways.
and there's no like Zulaport Cutthroat in this, Blood Artist. Both are pretty cheap cards that
Yeah.
double the damage output. Well, not Blood Artist. For Zulaport or other similar cards, it doubles your damage output with Azurgo very quickly.
Uh-huh.
I I rated this. I felt like 7 was a good rating in that sense. Not nothing to scoff at. I think it is a contender at any table because of that.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. So I did the same thing. I put it at 7, thinking, there's other decks I enjoyed more this year, but it definitely had things that dragged behind it. So 7 for me was like a nice happy medium of like, was it the deck that I think is my favorite deck of the year? No, but was it a bad deck? By no means.
Right.
Which brings us to number 6, which you apparently thought was a bad deck, Cole, because you ranked it number 9. No. So you ranked this number 9. I ranked it number 4. And this is going to wrap up Final Fantasy for us. That is number 6, Scions and Spellcraft, the Y'shtola Esper kind of control deck.
Yeah.
So I ranked this one super high because it really kind of tickles a playstyle for me, which
Sure.
is sling spells, get incidental damage off while you're doing it. I can see this being maybe the most divisive deck out of everything from this year because it is very control based. There's a ton of removal. There's a ton of, your creatures enter the battlefield tapped. There's a lot of like propaganda effects to prevent you from attacking. So if you are not into playing against that playstyle, it is a very oppressive deck, or can be for precon standards. If you are into that playstyle, it's kind of like gravy, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit's nice, a lot of it's great.
Yeah, it's a cool. Okay, it's a great card, and I rated it 9 for a couple of different reasons. But similarly to Zurgo, it does damage to each opponent whenever you cast a non-creature spell CMC 3 or greater. So you potentially have a win con in the command zone. It draws you cards, which is card advantage. Also similar to Zurgo. It's a cat girl. Awesome. Now, what it also does is paint a huge target on your head. I think I've played against Y'shtola several times, and like you said, it's a lot of kind of control-y, bordering on stacks effects that are going to cause people to get mad, and they want to take you down. And maybe you're able to protect yourself because you're playing your propagandas and all that, and you're gaining life, so you get kind of a healthy cushion of life to prevent you from dying. Well, what I've found is that, when people are, especially newer players, are looking around the table and they say, who should we attack? 99% of the time, it's whoever has the most life. Who has the most life? Oh, if you have you play a land that gives you 1 life and you're at 41, people are going to swing at you, even if you have nothing on the board. Pair that with Y'shtola, who is arguably, an archenemy style creature that everyone is going to want to deal damage to, so that they don't die. You just don't get so much value on a turn cycle of, I'm going to cast 4 things, which granted that is 12 mana, collectively over those turns, but there's ways to get around that. It's a great set of colors. I think for me, it's mainly precon. You're coming out of the gate, the arch enemy, everybody's going to try to take you out. I also kind of thought, I know I just talked about the amount of value you can get on a turn cycle, but it's kind of a slow deck. It takes a long time to take off, and with the heat that you're going to be getting, you better be making the most out of your CMC 3 or non-creature spells.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the biggest drawback here is the 3 CMC or greater aspect to it. I mean, and there are ways to mitigate it. Like you said, you could always do mana rocks. So you could cast a 3 CMC mana rock, tap it to generate mana to go get another thing, get another thing. You could play that out. I mean, you will still eventually peter out of mana because most are not 3 CMC tap to get 3 CMC. Usually it's a step down. So I mean, you'll stretch the amount of spells you can cast, but you're not necessarily going to have an infinite churn of spells you can cast. I mean, and there are other ways you can do like cost reducers, stuff like that. But this is definitely you sit down at the table and you're the person that has that precon for sure, which for me is interesting, but is also kind of why it's not my number 1 deck, because I know that if I'm playing this deck, even if it's not necessarily optimized, but it's out of the box, it does kind of come with that like, oh, there's going to be a ton of removal, a ton of counter spells. They're just sitting there, and instead of taking me out in one big turn, it's going to be more of like a Python kind of strangulation type game.
Yeah, draw go. One thing I do really like about this is the incidental card draw off of the first effect, because often people forget about that. Hey, I swing at you. Oh, you're going to swing at me? Because if I take 4 damage, Y'shtola is going to draw a card, so that sort of thing. Also, the fact that it applies to you as well as it cares about players losing 4 or more life. So it's kind of a lose-lose. It's a strong card. It just maybe I've played against it too much, so I'm pretty biased.
It's tainted the
Yeah.
pool. All right, moving on. We are now in the top 5, Cole.
Wow.
Now, I will say out of the top 5 here, all of these decks at this point, we're pretty much lockstep in. Like, I might have something ranked 5 and you've got it 6, or vice versa, or something along those lines, but we're pretty much on par with what our top 5 are together.
Awesome.
So coming in at number 5, this is number 6 for you, number 5 for me, is Temur Rage.
Roar. Temur Roar.
Oh, is it Roar? It is Temur Roar. No, it's Temur Rage.
I see Temur Roar.
I'll give it to you. It's Temur Roar.
Yeah, I just for the record, I am confirming. I'm looking at a photo of it. It is absolutely Temur Roar. I don't know what parallel dimension you walked out of, but it's
okay. So
Temur Roar.
speaking of parallel dimension, I swear to you, when I was looking at these commanders, so I was looking at the commander card, right? So the face commander, I put in the show notes so I can sit there and like reference it if we need to.
Yeah.
And you can look at multiple websites and they cannot, for the life of them, agree on what the face commander is on half these decks. So like this one here, so I put the face commander as being Eshki, Temur's Roar.
Correct.
But then, because that's what I was like, I swear that's what the face commander is. But then half the things I've looked at, Urini is the face commander. And I'm like, you could make it the face commander, sure, but it's not the face commander.
So I have a little bit to say about Urini. I have stuff to say about Eshki. So to start with, Eshki, obviously the face commander, 3 mana, wants you to cast high CMC spells or spells that have high power. Sorry, not CMC. And then you get benefits from it. It draws you cards if that spell's power is 4 or greater. Deals splash damage to each opponent if it's 6 or greater, equal to the power of the creature you're casting. So this is another win con in the command zone. So automatically, I think that's strong. Now, the deck is 90% mono red dragons. I famously love mono red dragons. I have a Lathless deck that I alternate commanders with, and it sees a lot of these cards in play. A lot of them are high mana value. So, you need ramp, and you get good ramp. So this is mainly a mono red deck, but it uses green for a lot of ramp. And if you were to upgrade it, you have great dragons in green, great dragons in blue. There's a couple of cool ones in here. Now, very, very few, but a couple. Now, notably, the alternate commander, Urini, is probably one of the most popular dragons to ever be printed. I mean, it's rivaling Miriam, it's rivaling the Dragon as far as like top dog dragon commanders go. And famously, Miriam is extremely unfun to play against. I don't know anyone who has a Miriam deck that I like to play against. Not a single person. Not a single person. I'm talking about you, Cory.
I noticed.
Urini is kind of a toned down Miriam where you're still getting value out of cool multiple dragons, but it's not as on the nose as copying multiple whatever horrible legendary dragon that you want, and it's a non-legendary copy, so you get to do all sorts of cheeky stuff. This deck is super easy to upgrade also because it gave you a ton of cool dragons, but there's a billion even cooler dragons in the pool to pick from, so you can really make this your own and kind of draw it into a direction that you want.
Yeah, this is like, so Miriam, which is funny because what I put down on my notes was Urini versus Miriam ? Because I was going to ask you what your thoughts were. So Miriam is famously like Temur dragons with clones, clones or blink effects and stuff like that. Urini, you can almost build a similar deck, but subtract the clones and just put a bunch of blink effects for Urini. But I think Urini is less obnoxious because Miriam is like, look at the obnoxious thing I put on the board. Now let me copy it. And then let me copy it. And let me copy it. And until it becomes super obnoxious.
Or you straight up just win off of like 2 dragons that kind of combo together.
Yeah, or you copy Miriam 1,000 times and then Miriam's making a bunch of copies and whatever.
It's miserable to play against. And I will say it is number 15 out of all commanders of all time. So it's very popular because it's so miserable. Yeah. Unnecessary ward.
Yeah, unnecessary ward, exactly. But Urini is like, I think is a little more fair because it's taking stuff off the top of your deck. So unless you're like stacking your deck constantly, and maybe you are, maybe you're like, I scroll rack my Temur dragon deck. I feel like it's like a little fairer and a little more fun because you're getting more randomness instead of just inevitability.
You get a big dragon. It's not every dragon I make chains into 4 different dragons, and now I'm making clones of Miriam, so now my dragons, create 3
Yeah, and I've got 16 copies of,
Scourge
whatever
of
inflamed.
Valakut, and then that's game. And admittedly, Urani is great in a Miriam deck because it's even better. You get 2 Uranis, and then you get 2 dragons off of those coming in that end up being 4 dragons. It's horrible, and it just really speaks to how miserable it is to play against Miriam. But
who's not in this precon?
That's not the point. Yeah. The point is that Temur Roar is like, it's a Temur deck, so it's value, you're ramping, you're drawing, you're in blue, so you can protect your board. It's cool, it's strong.
You know what?
It doesn't speak to me more than it.
Yeah, and what Eshki kind of reminded me of, if you do go the Eshki over the Urani route, is back in Strixhaven. Do you remember the Zephi commander deck? There was like Thunder Conductor or whatever. Yeah. So it had to do with the CMC of the spells you cast. So if it was like, oh, it's more than 2, you draw a card. If it's more than 4, you do whatever. If it's more than 8, you deal damage. So it kind of reminds me of that, just if there was like a creature version of it.
And isn't Zephi a creature?
Oh, yeah, but Zephi is like spell, like instant sorcery based. Because it's
and I like the whole power thing, because there are some cheeky moves you can do with this that creatures that cost super cheap, Phyrexian Dreadnought, but die immediately. But it's like, you're just doing it to deal 36 collective damage to the table,
And if you're wondering why this is higher than Abzan Armor, that's because power over toughness. But there you go. Number 5, Temur Roar. Number 4, we have Counterintelligence. So this is a number 3 for Cole, number 6 for Cory, from the Edge of Eternity, headed up by Kilo Apogee Mind, the Jeskai.
No, wrong.
Listen, here's how I know that it's right. Because I have the box. This is how I swear to you, Cole. Half the websites I looked at had the other one, Inspirit, the vehicle. Same as when we get to the other Edge of Eternity one. Half of them had Hearthhall or whatever. But I swear, if you take the box, it's Kilo is the face commander on the box, and Sazrel is the face commander on the other one.
Okay, but which one comes first when you open up the box?
Look at that bad boy right there.
All right.
Well, okay, so I haven't opened this one because the box is still sealed.
Are you gonna do it right now on camera? Ruin the resale value of this box?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't have sleeves at the moment. If I had sleeves, I would.
Well, no, because it'll come in a plastic wrapped, brick of cards. All you got to do is look at which one's in front.
Okay, so the other one was Sazrel, was the one in front. Look, okay, hold on. We're gonna do this. All right, we're ripping.
He's ripping
a bunch of binary bonus points if you are watching the video version of this, because this is great for audio. I'm sure right now.
Is there a video version of this?
Yeah, there's gonna be a video version of this.
For real? Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, check out the video version, because the audio, I guarantee you, is not doing you any favors right now. All right, let's see. The deck, of course, is behind every piece of garbage in here. You know what? It is Inspirit, is the face card.
Very interesting, Cory. Very interesting.
Who's right here? Kilo Apogee Mind.
Very interesting.
Kilo is the face of the box, but Inspirit is the face of the deck, I guess. So anyways, hey, choose your own adventure on this one. Whichever face commander you think you would like it to be. I personally, in my heart of hearts, believe it's Kilo Apogee Mind. But if you're a terrible person who doesn't shuffle their decks, then I guess it'll be Inspirit Flagship Vessel, which, for the record, if you look at the bottom, it does say that it is M002. Take that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a conspiracy as far as I'm concerned.
Counterintelligence. So this is like your proliferate. So if you go Kilo route, this is like your proliferate tap shenanigans. So tap, untap, proliferate things. If you go the Inspirit route, it's basically artifacts. It's like Jeskai artifacts that let you drop counters or charge counters on artifacts of your choice.
Yeah.
So one gives you the counters, and the other one proliferates the counters.
So okay, so I put this as number 3, and I will say that I do have a pretty high personal bias here because I have been playing this deck a lot online, upgraded, a little changed up, but I did play it several times as the precon out of the box. I think it's really fun. It's obviously cares about artifact synergy, which is super strong. That's one of the most supported, sub themes of all time. It has some very cool reprints that are super powerful in an artifact deck. Kappa Cannoneer, one of my favorite cards of the last 5 years.
Super
Cyberdrive
busted.
Awakener, which just wins games. And it has a ton of fun new cards, things like Lux Cannon Lux Artillery that gives everything Sunburst. And then it deals massive amounts of damage, splash damage to each opponent. I've only played it with Apogee or Kilo, the Apogee Mind, which does speak to
the true commander.
The true commander.
Yeah.
Playing this at 3 mana, just Jeskai 3/3 haste, cares about being tapped. You can pop off with any, ideally you're playing either a ramp piece turn 1 or 2, or you're playing something that has a counter that you can immediately start proliferating. There's always going to be someone who cannot block a 3/3 on turn 3. So, you get a free proliferate turn 3. I upgraded mine a little bit with some cool planeswalkers. It already has Deep Glow Skate, which doubles all counters, so that can kind of cheekily allow you to ult planeswalkers that you never get to ult otherwise. And it's just a super fun deck all around. Like, even without upgrading it, it's relatively strong. And I've had games where I look like I'm the weakest person, but then, I play one card and suddenly I'm the arch enemy. It's got a lot of combo potential, things that untap Kilo and tap and tap, untap and untap. You could do infinite counters, infinite power, and whatever you do with proliferate, which you could opt for an infect build in this, or play a couple of the artifacts, equipments that give infect.
Infect.
It's not great. It's not great, but you could do it.
There's a lot of things you could do, Cole. Yeah, you know what? Well, this is like one of those decks that any other year I think would be the number 1 deck of the year, because it's so good out of the box, and then there's so many upgrade routes you can go. Like you said, you can go super friends with this super easily, because how many 1 mana merfolk exist out there that are tap to untap target permanent, or tap to untap target artifact? Well, guess what? This is an artifact and a creature, so you can tap and untap and tap and untap whatever you need. So if you put 5 to 10 of those effects in there, and then just filled up the rest of your creature slots with counters or planeswalkers or whatever you wanted, in fact, you can just go to town with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards that are like that, like Pemin's Aura and things that untap and tap creatures, because you need an outlet to tap it. Just having an untapper isn't enough. But Springleaf Drum and that sort of thing allow you can generate tons of mana, tons of value. And if you have a counter on one other thing, or maybe you're using an Astral Cornucopia, or the most surprising thing for me was the strength of Sunburst. There's cards that give your creatures Sunburst, and then a Kilo is 3 colors. Sunburst gives you a 1/1 counter for each color of mana used to cast that spell. So even your colorless artifacts, you're able to swap up your color that you're dedicating into them, and your artifact creatures are coming out as 6/6s, and then they're getting, on that same turn, they're getting proliferated up to 6/7s. Excuse me.
Even stuff like Hangerback Walker, and it was in the deck out of the box.
Yeah.
Even stuff like that, where you just go, okay, it's going to come in with counters already, and every time I can proliferate, I'm getting that much closer to a victory, to a win con.
You could do a modular build where all creatures have modular, and they come in with counters and then moving them around. I mean, this is just a really dope artifact deck that's super easy and fun. It has cool new cards in it. It does start off with 40 lands, which I think is a little ridiculous, whereas most of these other precons started with 37 lands. But that just means super easy to upgrade. You automatically get 3 slots that you can change out for cool stuff. So
Yeah. So that being said, this is our number 4 pick. I think this is, for me, the one that if you haven't picked up a deck, like if you haven't picked up a Precon this year and you want something that you can really craft and make your own, this is probably the pickup I would suggest, because you can craft it in so many different directions that you can really put your thumbprint all over it. Whereas
yep.
some of these other ones kind of have the rails built in already and you can tweak it and stuff like that. But this one is 100% like, if you wanted to go down to the studs, you could and still have a really super fun, powerful deck.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
All right. Now we're in the top 3, Cole. So number 3, we haven't heard it since the beginning, but from Aether Drift. We have Eternal Might. So this was your fifth deck, my third. This is the Esper like zombie quote unquote deck, but it also has a lot to do with like card draw and discard synergies.
Yeah. Okay. So automatically, if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me do my spiel about the Scarab God, my favorite deck because of its versatility. This is a ripoff, quite frankly, of my Scarab God deck, except it's way worse. As
Scarab God with white.
Yeah. So when this got spoiled, I immediately forgot about Timit Noctimune's Will, who's the face commander, who's actually way better as a face commander, I think, for the Precon, because it is more of a zombie deck than like a Hashaton deck. But this deck also came out with Hashaton, the Scarab's Fist, which is a white and a black for a very strong, very Scarab God adjacent ability that reanimates something for 3 mana, which is actually cheaper than Scarab God. However, it's only your own creature cards, and they, you have to be able to discard them. So I think it has its strengths and its weaknesses. I will never swap off of Scarab God. I really enjoy it. But this is out of the box, really strong zombie deck. It's Kindred, it's typal. It has its reanimating as far as like zombie synergy goes, but it's not leaning into Hashaton, which is kind of like, you want to play it early, you want to loot whatever Hullbreaker Horror into the grave and reanimate it the next turn, and then just kind of rely on a cheap punch. Now, admittedly, Hashaton, super popular. This year, it's already number 42 as far as commanders of all time.
Oof.
And Scarab God is still pretty high up. It's number 112. So Hashaton is much more popular.
And he's only the fist of Scarab God.
Right. Not even necessarily. He's the Scarab's Fist. He's not the Scarab. He could be a bug's fist as far
He's
as
the fist of the bug, whom's God leads your deck.
There's nothing super remarkable about this deck other than the fact that zombies are fun. It's solid. It's Kindred. So, it has a lot of synergies.
This is one of those decks that, like, because it's a Kindred deck, it synergizes better than it would if it wasn't a Kindred deck. Like, if this thing was just, so like Timid is whenever you draw a card, you buff your zombies.
Yeah.
If this was just like, whenever you draw a card, you make a 1/1 zombie or something, or you make a 1/1 creature token. It wouldn't be as strong. It's the fact that when you have all these zombies out and then you play a bunch of wheels or you just draw a card for turn, you're instinctively buffing your entire board.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, you cast a Windfall with Timid out, which that's a really strong way to give your kind of go wide deck a huge power boost. He does cost 5 mana, and then on top of that, you have to cast the wheel. So it's
first
visible on the board.
The play pattern's clear. So you go Rhystic Study and turn
Smothering Tithe,
and then Timid. That's your 3, 4, 5 turns.
Turn 1 Soul Ring every time.
So Soul Ring, Arcane Signet. Then your Rhystic, your Smothering Tithe, your Timid, and then you wonder why people keep attacking you. And you bemoan loudly while you just get trampled by everybody else.
Luckily, he has Vigilance. So you could do some sort of tricks here where you're drawing cards at instant speed and people don't want to swing at you because you have a 4/4 that quickly turns into a 5/5 or a 6/6. Yeah, I think Timid is definitely the least interesting commander out of this set. But it's reliable. Yeah, it's not the best zombie in Esper.
Have you seen the meme that's like, would you rather have the one deck that wins 70% of the time, but you're stuck with that deck forever, or would you rather have access to any deck, but you only win 15% of the time?
Okay, well, the easy answer is 15% of the time, any deck, because not only
Correct.
does that allow you to get more fun, but in Commander, you're really only supposed to win 25% of games. And obviously there's some discrepancy there for like skill or experience or whatever, but you don't want to be like curb stomping your opponent 70% of the time and nobody's
So
having fun playing with you.
so what I'm saying is, like, I agree with you, first off, because I would pick the 15% in any deck any day of the week because well, first off, if we do the math, I'm pretty sure I don't win 15% of the time as is, so we're good. It might be an improvement for me. But secondly, this is like the opposite end of that, right? Where you go, he might win 30% of the games that he's in, but he's just such a vanilla thing that you're
Yeah.
really more like, wow, look how exciting I can build my 99, and he just makes the 99's glue that much stronger.
Yeah, I mean, zombies are always going to be a fun typal,
Mhm.
synergy pile. They're always releasing new zombies, so like you're always going to be able to spice up this deck. It's a great intro to Magic because it's such a popular kindred type, but it's just not super exciting to me. I've
Yeah.
been playing Magic a long time. I scoff in the face of commanders like these.
Yeah, I think this is, I think you were right when you started this conversation here. It's like Timit's the best one for the precon. If
Yeah.
you're gonna build a deck, go with Hashaton, but you have to build a separate deck that's not really based in this deck.
Yeah, it's a wholly new deck where you're replacing zombie synergy for big boss monsters that you can discard turn 2 or 3. You need a lot more looters and ways to guarantee discard. Whereas if you wanted to really buff up Timid, there are some seriously cool zombie synergy pieces
Mhm.
that you could make this, like you said, a really strong 99 and have it be just as fun and exciting as Hashaton. But let's see how popular Timid is as a command.
Compared to Hashaton.
We're looking
I'm
at
gonna
162, which actually is, I mean, considering it's a precon, so it's super readily available,
for
but
Timid
that's not bad at all.
and Hashaton's top 40 or like 45, you said?
He's 42. He's the meaning of life at this point, or answer to.
I thought that was 47.
I'm nearly positive it's 42 in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay, but to be fair, I don't think that's the meaning of life because I think if I remember, they ask Deep Thought, what's the answer to everything? And
Yeah,
then it
what
gives them
is
that
the
answer,
answer
and
to
then
the
it's
ultimate
like,
question of life? And the supercomputer answers 42.
yeah, but then I'm pretty sure when they're like, that's the meaning of life, it says to them, well, you didn't ask a question. You just asked me what the answer to everything was.
Well, it takes like a million years, and then it finally comes up with that answer, and then it has to design an even more powerful supercomputer that can find the question.
I like that we're having this conversation not on the counterintelligence below the apogee mind one, but the one that's probably dated the oldest in all of the chronology here, which is the desert.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more decks remaining, Cole. If you've been doing your tallies at home, you know exactly which 2 they are, and I will say that these 2, you and I were in lockstep. So even though we're a little scattered in the middle, but I would say
Yeah.
roughly, in the same ballpark. These 2, we 100% without comparing notes knew what the correct order was, and that is number 2, Sultai Arisen. This is the final deck from Tarkir. This is the Taval, the Balance Scale, Sultai 4/4, kind of self-mill, also zombie deck.
Mhm.
This one here, I know I said that I was not a big self-mill person when we were talking about Terra.
Yeah.
This one here is like my exception. So, for 2 reasons. One, because it's optional self-mill. So the Terra one kind of forces you each turn to mill 2.
Yeah.
This one here, it's win to vol attacks. So you don't necessarily have to do it, but admittedly, you're going to want to do it. And I also like that this one comes with the land recursion. Because my biggest fear with self-mill is that I'm going to like, oh no, I dumped all these cards I want into the graveyard, and it's so easy to get a permanent out, but what about flashbacking spells, and what about getting my lands back out, and what.
Well, okay. Yeah.
So this kind
So
of mitigates a lot of that.
the thing is all right, I think every new player, not to call you a new player, but I see a lot of new players who come in, they're very afraid of mill. And they're like, oh, you milled this card, I needed this card, or you milled a land, I needed a land. Okay. your deck has 99 cards in it, and you never see the bottom 70 cards, or like the bottom 50 or the bottom 20, or you're never going to see all the cards in your deck. So
Joke's on you.
uh-huh.
I play River Song, so I only see the bottom cards on my deck.
Fair, valid. Which in that case, mill is actually even more interesting for you because you're not milling any cards that you would draw otherwise. Now, I think that this is a really great like intro to mill, but mill isn't scary. Yeah, it's yes, you're seeing cards going to the graveyard, but you have to treat your graveyard as an extension of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you build around that weakness. If you're worried about not getting instants or sorceries, well, maybe you do a lot of flashback instants or sorceries that you're able to cast from the graveyard. Or, your 99 is going to support you getting things back. You're in greens, you Eternal Witness, and now you get everything. This is a phenomenal reanimator deck. Like directly out of the box, it has some really strong, cool boss monsters to send into the graveyard and get out for cheap. You're ramping hopefully every turn that you attack with Tival, who is safe to attack because he's a flyer and nobody plays flyers, or there's always going to be someone who is a free attack into you. It's any land, return any land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So I'm seeing, in my mind, it's a Sultai deck. You get access to Cabal coffers. You get access to there's a lot of land-based combos. Field of the Dead, stuff like that. That's just going to get you more zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Build your board up bigger without you even having to dedicate a ton of like the mediocre creatures that you're used to block in the beginning of the game. You just skip straight to the boss monsters, pack a full reanimation spells. It's super easy to upgrade this deck.
Yeah, and like I said, this is the deck that also kind of got me okay with the self mill aspect. Like I've never been a big graveyard player, just as a trait of mine, and I would say
Yeah.
between this one and the Mirko deck that came out last year from Carl of Manor have kind
Yeah.
of changed
Surveil.
my perspective on the whole graveyard recursion bit. Not to mention, I've also recently this year I built Captain Howler from
Right.
which is like a discard central thing, which is also sort of a resource allocation that I've steered away from, which is like discarding cards.
For
So,
value.
these have like pushed me in new directions to find the value out of this kind of playstyle.
Yeah. Now, like, okay, and there's so much mill support that isn't included in this precon. So you have your mesmeric orbs, your altar the brood, which mills more your opponent's stuff than your own. But I mean, you do become a target when you start milling your opponents, anyways. So you
I was
probably don't
kind of
want to.
surprised, speaking of like mill support, I was kind of surprised looking at this deck list that Sir Conrad wasn't in here, because that also seems kind of like a easy slot
Shoo-in.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, Sir Conrad, which cares about creatures entering or leaving your graveyard from anywhere, which mill is going to get you, you can reanimate him pretty easily. He's a win con.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a super valid point.
Also, not to mention, what this has going over Terra, the art's better.
Yeah, the borderless Taval is gorgeous. It's a
Yeah,
really
like
nice looking
color
card.
scheme is fantastic. It's just it scratches that itch. So
Yeah.
this is the one that I would say if if we're talking like Kilo being if you want to have a deck you can thumbprint all over, this is the one that I think if you want a deck that's going to stretch you in a new way that maybe you're not always comfortable with, I would recommend that, because that's what this deck did for me. Being able to kind of play it, be okay, kind of taking the Iron Fist off of the deck and letting stuff go to the graveyard and using that graveyard as a second hand, it gives you a better experience with that,
Yeah.
about kind of resource management, and it also ultimately gives you like a lesson in card advantage. Because, okay, yes, I'm quote unquote losing this card, but I'm not really, because I'm getting creatures out of it, and you're getting different value pieces.
Yeah. Don't even look at the alternate commander for this. Kotis of the Sibsig champion. He's
Exists.
fine, but it's going to require a lot more, like, sources of mill to really get value out of this, because he requires you to exile 3 other cards from your graveyard in addition to paying the mana cost of the thing you want to reanimate. It's I don't know, it's fine, but it's no Taval. Taval by itself is just an engine piece. It fields, creates you the zombies, overruns boards. Yeah, gives you the chance to combo. But I think that's a great point that you said about, it's a great intro to getting more comfortable with aspects of the game that new players often find intimidating.
All right. Now, if you've been keeping track, we are now down to our final, the top tier, numero uno precon of the year. From Edge of Eternity, we have the World Shaper Precon. Now, we can debate whether it's Sazril or it's Hearthhall as the phase commander, blah, blah, blah. You should run Hearthhall.
Yeah.
The other one, it's cool, run Hearthhall. Hearthhall is like the little engine that could, except instead of it could stomp your opponents into the ground.
Yeah. I mean, okay, if you've been under a rock, or if you haven't been under a rock, then you've seen, like, pretty much immediately everyone was like, oh man, this might be the strongest precon that's ever been released. It's Hearthhall miles better than Sawrel, the Genesis Shepherd, but this is very similar to Taval in the sense of, like, it's doing something that new players are kind of scared of usually, which is sacrificing lands. No, like, that's nothing worse than losing your lands, but it instantly replaces that by giving you, drawing 2 cards. You can play an additional land, so you got to get a little comfortable with that. But I think it's really great because it shows you easily how strong it is. It's splash damage. Once you've stationed up Hearthhole, not only is he a flying vigilance haste, I'm not going to say his power and toughness again, because I don't want to, but it comes with a hand motion. And
Sure.
it's the meme of the
a
century.
Reverse dribble, yeah.
Right. It's just such a large amount of value. Now, it is an artifact, so it's, like, more likely to get removed than a normal creature. But the thing is like, oh my goodness, the value is just crazy. I've playing against this out of the box. You're often, you look over at the Hearthhole player and he has 9 to 12 lands, and you're sitting over there looking at your pathetic 4. And he then on the next turn, he plays something miserable that just gives you half the value, you double the value, or he's sacrificing even more lands, and suddenly you're losing a huge chunk of life, and it's game over. So,
and it helps too that, like, when you think about sacrificing lands, you actually do it from the very beginning in basically every precon. When you think about, like, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse,
right?
How many, once you start upgrading your mana base, how many fetch lands there are out there, stuff like that.
Right.
So, like, you're already out there doing that. You're already doing your myriad landscapes and stuff. But this deck comes with so many, like, play an extra land this turn. Also, you can play lands from your graveyard. I mean, Sazrel, the backup commander, or the one we're nominating as the backup commander, lets you play lands from the graveyard. I think there's Zurin Orb is in this deck right out the gates.
Exploration Broodship, a 1 mana spacecraft that allows you to play another land.
Yeah, so you're getting extra land drops. You're getting those ones back out of the graveyard. So even though you've sacrificed them, you're bringing them out to sacrifice again. This is arguably the deck that's like, you can upgrade this deck, but you don't need to upgrade this deck in order for it to be a really solid, very competitive deck. So when people were saying, like, this is the most powerful precon, maybe we could say that some of that's, like, hyperbole, but it's not that far from it when you actually think about just quality of deck you're getting out of this.
Yeah, it's a high quality deck, and then you look at the reprints, and there's nothing in here that's crazy. Is hardly a single card that's over $1, which means stays pretty cheap. You're always going to be able to find this for pretty much, air quotes, MSRP.
Has Corvold in it.
Yeah, that's fair, which is currently a $1 card. It is one of the few, but your upgrades are just infinite for this. Depending on how much money you want to spend or proxy, fetch lands, just take this thing up to another level. There's so much bringing lands from your graveyard support that's easy to swap in. There's World Shaper, the titular card that was not included in the precon,
Weirdly
called
enough.
World Shaper, that does everything you want it to do and more. I mean, you sneeze on this deck and you're upgrading it slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the if you don't like Evolving Wilds and stuff, I'm a big fan of the new Capenna kind of like fetches that you drop them in, like the Cabaret
Well, they
Courtyard.
have those. Rivetier's Overlook, Cabaret Courtyard, they're already in there.
Yeah, you drop it in, you gain a life, and you go search right off the bat.
Which gives you double landfall triggers. You easily replace some of the, nonsense in here with some landfall stuff, and that's a recipe for a victory too. And so I'd agree that this is easily the strongest precon. I'm glad we both voted on it number one. There's no contest really. It's in its own class.
Yeah, this was the one, like I said, when I said there's a tier that's like you and I are both in full agreement. It was pretty much this, Taval, and then like Kylo and Timid somewhat, but definitely the last two. Number 2 and number 1, we were both like, hands down, this is where it should be. And ironically, so, we mentioned earlier on the episode, like Cody was kind of pulled in this too. So he was supposed to come on and record with us, but he had some technical difficulties.
Sure.
He also had the exact same 2 and 1. So the fact that they're so readily acknowledged as the top 2 decks of the year, and that this World Shaper one is so heads and shoulders beyond the rest of them in what I would consider to be one of the strongest years for precons we've had, just speaks volumes about how strong that deck is.
Well, and it's worth noting to our audience that what we say is the law.
Canon.
And
Yeah.
So our combined averages are going forward the standard ranking system. No subjectivity. It's all objective.
I also would say don't look at TCG Player as a example of where you should rank these decks, because I did that just out of curiosity, and they had World Shaper as like the number 10 or 11th deck, and I was like, well, these rankings can't be trusted.
Yeah, maybe in an opposite day world, or maybe if number 10 like is the best, and then it cycles down,
Sure.
or, so.
But hey, there you guys have it. That is our definitive etched in stone ranking of 2020. I would say pick up any of these decks that seem interesting to you. They all are pretty good quality. Even Living Energy, I would say, is like a passable deck if you want an energy deck.
No.
But probably don't pick it up. But the higher up the list you go, the better chances are you're going to enjoy your deck.
Yeah.
But that being said, Cole, let's get to question of the week, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode because we're coming up on the hour 40 mark. So we have a nice hearty episode today.
Sure.
Question of the week. I think this is going to be a little divisive, but I am curious to see what your thoughts are on this. So the question of the week is, my opponent is playing a quote, kill on sight, unquote, commander. Should I use a counterspell?
Man, well that's such a case by case basis to say, because in today's era, so many commanders are kill on sight. How kill on sight is it? Is it more kill on sight than Joe Schmo, who's going to play next and he's going to drop mono blue Urza? It's hard to. And then how much is it? Just a normal counterspell, or are you
going to win the game counterspelling?
Yeah. I would say it really depends on the context. I've definitely countered. The cool thing about kill on sight commanders and also other noob trap commanders that I would say are the commanders that are so strong that you're like, oh wow, I've just got into Magic and I looked up what's the strongest deck, how do I beat my friends, and I get Eureka and I get Miriam and I get whatever Ur-Dragon or whatever. You remove that a couple times, you it twice, or you counter it the first time, your buddy uses a removal spell on it the second time. Now it costs 4, now it costs 6 additional mana to cast. You can just knock somebody out of the game. I'm famously, one of my buddies, the very first deck that he built was Kalia of the Vast.
You would counterspell that sucker.
I played Magic for a long time. I know what Kalia of the Vast does. I'm not going to let that slide. So we removed it 3 to 5 times. Makes for a horrible intro to Magic of like, well, why do I even have this commander if you're just going to remove it? It's like, yeah, it's kill on sight. Oh, and then the one time you let it survive, psych, it's the dude who, when he attacks and is unblocked, it transfers, brings you to 1, and then Kalia flying kills you. It's like, okay, well, now I understand in the future to never let this thing resolve. So I am a fan of counterspelling commanders. I hate when it happens to me. I play some commanders that are probably kill on sight, and
them's the breaks.
Yeah, them's the breaks. But if I hate it, then it probably means it's strong.
Yeah, I personally, I'm not a huge counterspell person in general. So I don't run decks that carry a ton of counterspells. I mean, I'll have like a couple, but I'm more of a removal from the board person. So you're more likely, if you're playing me, you're more likely to get that commander out and then have me remove it in some way than me to counter it on the stack, which I don't know. Maybe that feels a little better because you got to see it enter the board. Maybe it feels worse. I don't know.
Well-
But I agree with you. Like if there's certain commanders, like if you're about to play, I've got Joda. Okay, listen, you need to be not having Joda out on the field. I'm okay if somebody wants to counterspell it or leadership vacuum it or whatever. Wash away.
I think it's worth stating. Yeah, wash away is fantastic. That counter spells, you mentioned that you prefer your play style maybe prefers removal versus counter spells. If I'm playing blue, I don't like to do too many counter spells because I feel it's always a feels bad moment when every time I cast a spell, I have to look over and say, does it resolve? You have 1 mana, does it resolve? Oh, you have Fierce Guardianship in there. I have to ask every single time, regardless of if you have mana open. Now, I do like to keep a couple counter spells because of the versatility of their removal when you need them to be on a creature. They protect your board when somebody's trying to disrupt it. They stop win conditions. Oh, I'm gonna cast this and then this sorcery and I win the game. No, but you can't do that with Doomblade. So I'm a fan of counter spells. I like to hold it up. The idea is really if something's not killing you directly, you probably hold up the removal for it. Makes them a target. It's there's a kill on sight. You can even rally the table and say, Cory just landed Miriam, which a counterspell much better than a removal because it has ward, and you skip the ward cost. He played Miriam. Get him. You can rely on your teammates to take out the threat that way, or not teammates, but
Now I will say that like I am guilty of. This might be the worst thing I've ever done. So I once gave somebody a deck, which is the Wise Mothman, because they played it and they were like, "Oh, I really enjoyed it." Blah 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 blah. Right. So we went and got them the Wise Mothman. And then I proceeded to never let that thing enter the battlefield because I know what it can do when it enters the battlefield. And I was like, red counters and mill and all this nonsense. So I probably got them to like a 13 mana Wise Mothman by the end of the game between counter spells and then just plain removal on top of it. So yeah, if it's the right kill on sight commander, like if I am compelled to never let Toxrill or the Wise Mothman or Turgid hang around. I'm not afraid of blowing something into oblivion and going, the only way I don't have to put up with Toxrill is if Toxrill costs 15 mana and I never have to look at it because you're never going to be able to cast it. I'm okay with that win con.
Well, and oftentimes you only got to do that once or twice to someone before they say, okay, that was I think we've talked about this before, but like their kill on sight commanders often are, if this resolves, I have fun and you guys don't. If it doesn't resolve, you have fun and I don't. And so Toxrill, great example, kills everything in one turn rotation. You never play a creature again. It's also card draw, and sure, it costs 7, but you're.
Yeah, it's also in blue, so they're probably running counterspells themselves to protect it.
Because they have to, because it's happened so many times. Oh, I never get to play my commander. If you have a commander that is so hated or hateful that you never get to play it, you get a huge lightning rod effect in your command zone, which can be helpful if you have a strong 99 and everyone's holding up the counterspell because they don't want you to cast Toxrill. But if you play a commander that's a little more low key, a little nonchalant, you're getting to play the game 90% more you get to cast your commander every game and not worry about it getting removed. That's a good feeling. Swap Toxrill, man. That's
you're not wrong. I've net decked Toxrill and I've net decked Silumgar, the Drifting Death, which is like the dragons give -1/-1.
Neg 1, yeah.
And it like they kind of do the same thing, but nobody wants to get rid of Silumgar because they're like, it's only affecting one person, and if he doesn't swing at me, we're good.
Well, and it's a swing, and it gives that -1/-1 to like all creatures that player controls. It's not every upkeep your creatures.
Yeah, you're not getting buried alive, basically. Yeah. So I guess hopefully that helps. If it's kill on sight, it's kill on sight for a reason, I guess. We both say counterspell it. Situationally, of course. Don't counterspell them if the next player has Joda or Urza or something waiting in the wings. Sure.
Yeah, and use politics.
Yeah.
talk your friends into abusing your other friends because they play bad commanders.
That's the game. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. So we hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for hanging out, making it to the end of today's episode. If you want to follow us, you can follow Cole at Love and Mana at all his different social sites, and we'll have those down in the links below. You can follow me at Sleevecard, or you can follow the podcast directly at urcastpod or contact.urcast@gmail.com. So you can go there and you can leave any of your question of the weeks. You can ask us which of your commanders you would like us to counterspell or not counterspell. Maybe you play Toxrill and you want to make a good argument to why it shouldn't be counterspelled.
Yeah.
Send it to us there or leave it down in the comments. Either one, I'd love to read your sick, gross justifications.
If I read that you're defending Toxrill, I'm ignoring. It's going straight into the
I'm gonna make
ignored pile. Yeah.
I'm gonna make an anonymous account just so I can put a defensive Toxrill in the comments.
Yeah, I'm putting. You send it in. I'm gonna put a sludge counter on it on everybody's upkeep and just keep sending it to the bottom of the list.
Fair enough. Oh, but hey, thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. Have yourselves a magical Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.